Hi everyone, this is Heather. Thanks for joining me. Today I have a project tutorial for you for something that is really fun and different for Halloween, and that is a decorated treat tube that you can put candy, jelly beans, pumpkin seeds, any type of small little treat that you would like inside. And I've got this really cute tag and a little bat attached to it, tied with some twine. You can see that the tag is double-sided, which is really cute. So what we're using today are some treat tubes from Stampin' Up, and these are really fun, pretty heavy-duty plastic tubes with a cork stopper, and these are available in the new holiday catalog from Stampin' Up. We're also going to be using a new stamp set from Stampin' Up. Sorry for the glare. And this is called Seasonal Chums. And there is an adorable snowman, the cutest little reindeer, a pumpkin, which we're using today. Really great to and from, which is perfect for tags. And then some really great sentiments. We're going to use the trick or treat sentiment today. So this is Seasonal Chums, available in the holiday Stampin' Up catalog. And then we're also going to be using the coordinating seasonal tags framelit dies that have cutouts for the for all the tags, for the pumpkin, for the deer, and for the snowman. And then in addition to it, there's some snowflakes, the bat, a little tree, some fall leaves, spider web, a little scalloped tag. But what we're going to use today in the project is the die cut that goes along with the pumpkin stamp, and then also the little bat die cut. So not too many items needed to make this. We're going to need a sheet of watercolor paper, and it just needs to be a little bit bigger than the stamp and the tag die cut. Mine is cut to about 4.5 by 2.5. Some good hot press watercolor paper, just a little strip of black cardstock, and I use some black and white twine. You can use whatever twine you have, or ribbon, anything that you want that you can tie your tag to your treat tube. I wanted to watercolor my tag, so we're going to be using black StazOn ink because we're using a water-based coloring medium. And I'm going to be using some colored pencils. I'll turn around so you can read the names. Some colored pencils from Stampin' Up, which come like this. And the colors that we're using are, appropriately enough, Pumpkin Pie, Old Olive, and Daffodil Delight to color in our images. And then you're also going to need some small glue dots, either a water brush or just a brush and a cup of water. And then I also like to use repositionable tape when I'm doing my my die cutting. So first things first, we're going to stamp out, make some space here. I'm going to stamp out the pumpkin stamp. Sorry if I'm shaking that camera there. We're gonna ink that up really well with the StazOn and stamp it onto our watercolor paper. Make sure to give it some good pressure because the watercolor paper does have some texture, but it doesn't need to be centered on the paper or anything since we're going to be die cutting it out. So let's check and see if we got a good image. That looks pretty good. We're going to watercolor over top of it, so if there's some sections that didn't stamp out very well, that's okay. A little tip too that you can do is to, if you have just like a thin black marker, if you have some areas that didn't stamp out all the way, you can kind of fill those in. So I'm going to start off with the green Old Olive and add some color to the leaves and the stem of the pumpkin on both sides. So when I watercolor, I like to just kind of hit around the edges with some color, and then use the water brush or paintbrush, whatever I'm doing, to pull that color out from those areas. And so this part can be done pretty quickly. You don't, as long as you're sort of staying in the lines, and even if you go outside the lines, that's fine, because that's sort of the artsy painterly look of using watercolors. So this part can be done fairly quickly. So I've just added a little bit of green pencil, and I like to just use a paper towel and get just a little bit of water on the coming out to wet the tip of the water brush, and then just go over where I've added that color. Like I said, if you go over the lines a little bit, that's okay. That's sort of the look that you get. So that's kind of, and if you feel like you need a little bit of water, I usually don't squeeze while I'm over top of my work, because a lot of times I'll end up getting a big blob of water. So if I need a little bit more water, I'll kind of go back to my paper towel, squeeze out a little bit more water, and get the tip of the brush wet again, and go back over and just kind of pull that color around. If you want to add a little bit more shading, you can do a couple of different things. You can go in with the pencil over top of the wet. That usually is fine, as long as you've got a good watercolor paper that will hold up to the extra coloring and the extra water. You can go back over that if you feel like it needs to be a little bit darker. Another tip that you can use is to actually take the tip of your water brush, make sure you've got a good amount of water on there, and touch it to the pencil. And then when you take it to your paper, it's a little bit darker. Hopefully you can see that on camera, where I picked up a little bit more color. So it just depends on how much, you know, shading and light and dark areas that you would like. So I'm happy with the green on there, and I always want to kind of flush the water brush out onto the paper towel, just to make sure that there's no green left on the tip of the brush to possibly contaminate it onto our next color. So next I'm going to grab the pumpkin pie, and again kind of concentrating on following the lines of the stamp and adding my color there so that it's a little bit darker, so when the color gets pulled away, it adds a little bit of shading. So I'm going to do that here and kind of avoid the areas where I want to add the yellow inside to make it look like that the jack-o'-lantern is lit. If you want to add a little bit more color on the bottom for your shading, that's good too. Just however much color you want to add. So make sure there's water on our water brush. I'm going to go in and just go over and pull some of that color out away from the lines that we've drawn there. Get a little bit more water on the brush. Like I said, as long as you've got a pretty good watercolor paper, you should be able to add good amounts of water without the paper kind of pilling up or buckling. So you can see I've got some nice shading going on there. I go back to the back side here and kind of try and avoid some of the green leaves so we don't get it too muddy back there. So I just kind of get a little bit more water back and forth and get that color kind of pulled out and blended a little bit. And you can leave as much of the kind of lines that you've drawn on there as much as you want. It just kind of depends on the look that you want. Do you want it kind of washed out? Do you want a little bit more darker areas? I'm happy with that, with the shading. So we're done with the back of the pumpkin. Again, I'm gonna clean off the water brush onto the paper towel so that that pumpkin color doesn't contaminate it too much. I'm gonna grab this Daffodil Delight and add some yellow inside of the pumpkin, especially around the edges there. And go back in, make sure my water brush is good and damp, and just use the brush to pull that yellow in. And there we go. So I'm happy with that. That looks really pretty. I love the watercolor look. It's so popular right now, and I'm really, really glad. One of my favorite things is to use watercolor pencils. I just think it's so quick and easy. I'll put the cap back on my water brush. I've wiped it off with my paper towel, so we're good to go. So now we're going to die cut. So I've got my piece that I've just watercolored. I've got my little scrap of black, and I'm going to adhere my die cuts. I like to use a repositionable low tack tape. You could also use washi tape, painter's tape, or for like the bat, you wouldn't necessarily have to tape it in place, but for the pumpkin, whenever you're die cutting around a stamped image, I really recommend taping it in place. So we're gonna lay the die over top, and I'm gonna tape it at the top and the bottom just so that it doesn't shift while it's inside of the die cut machine. Get over top. So you just want to kind of center that so you can see a little bit of the white area all the way around. And I'm going to tape that at the top, and I'm going to tape that at the bottom like so. Got my little bat over here as well. Make some room to pull my die cut machine over, so I'm just grabbing my platform, placing my dies inside, and then I'm gonna run those through my Sizzix Big Shot real quick. And I know I say this every time I film a video, but I like to go back again, especially if it's a really detailed die. These aren't super detailed, but just to make sure that you've got a good die cut there, that it's cut through everything. So we'll, oh, a little bat actually got stuck to the top plate. So here's our cute little die cut bat. And we'll get our pumpkin here. And I absolutely love how perfectly that cuts that as a tag. There's a little loop at the top there. Get these things out of the way so we can put our tube together. So first thing I'm going to do is fold the pumpkin tag over, line it up just with my finger crease. If you want to use your bone folder, you can, but I'm just going to kind of crease that over. And then I'm also going to take my bat die cut, and I hope you can see this, at the edge where the body and the wing meet, I'm going to kind of fold that up just a little bit on both sides, just to give him a little bit more dimension when we add him to that. So you can kind of see it kind of looks like he's flying. I'm going to grab my StazOn ink again and get my words, little trick-or-treat words, make sure they're going in the right direction, and open up my tag and use my black ink again to get those words stamped inside of my pumpkin tag, like that. It's trick-or-treat. Get these out of the way. And so now I'm going to get my treat tube and my twine, and I cut my baker's twine to approximately 20 inches. It's probably longer than what I need, but I always like to have extra tails to trim off. It will just make things a whole lot easier. We're going to thread the twine through the hole. And then I am going, so that it doesn't slip on me, I'm just going to tie just an overhand knot. Don't pull too hard because you don't want to pull through your paper. And then I like to take one of the glue dots and place it on the tube. Take off that backing paper, and I'm going to attach where we ran that twine through, and that is going to help hold that tag in place while we tie the twine on. Otherwise you're kind of fidgeting. Hopefully I can do this on camera. So I'm just wrapping the twine around the back of the tube and bring it around to the front. So you can see now because my tag has been adhered to the tube there, it's not gonna slip around. So I'm just tying, just like you tie your shoelaces, I'm just gonna tie a bow. And then kind of fidget with it a little bit so I get it kind of to be the size that I want it to be. I'm gonna play with that a little bit until we're happy with it. Then I'm gonna take my scissors and I'm gonna trim off some of that excess there, like that. So I've got my bow there. So now we're going to adhere a glue dot to the back of the body of the bat. See if I can get one of these off, and that's very fidgety. Put that onto the back of the bat. That backing paper off, and I'm just going to adhere that to the knot that we tied on our treat tube, and now we're done. I just think this is such a unique way to pass out candy, or like so if you don't want to do candy, you could put pumpkin seeds, which would be really fun inside. I like the dimension of the little bat, and that the tag lifts up from the back. You can see the coloring on the tag. This is just so fun, so cute, really quick and easy project. So again, we're using some new treat tubes from Stampin' Up. We're using the Seasonal Chums stamp set and the seasonal tag framelits dies that coordinate with it. So I'm super excited about Halloween coming up. It is my favorite holiday. You will probably see several Halloween projects from me coming up in the upcoming time before Halloween. I just absolutely love it, and I love making projects for it. So thank you so much for joining me today. Please check out my channel. I have product reviews and other project tutorials on there. And thank you so much for joining me, and happy Halloween. This is Heather. Have a great day. Bye.